Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry episode 5. Natsuhi is hiding in the closet, like physically hiding in the closet, to be exact. This is actually one of the things that she was told that she had to do if she wanted to make sure that her husband was going to be safe, supposedly from this mysterious person X who's been introduced in this episode, this individual from 19 years ago. Supposedly, Natsuhi's son, adopted son, kind of? I don't know. It's a little weird. I don't believe any of it, but yeah, let's see what's going to happen now that she's actually obeying here and is hiding away for an hour in this guest room closet. I can't believe I'll be hiding in the darkness for a full hour with nothing to hear except the wind and rain. Unless we hear some screams or something. I mean, who knows? There could be some stuff that's going to make her want to, jump out of the closet here. Ironically, Natsuhi had made Jessica do the exact same thing in the past. She had done it when Jessica was a little girl to scold her for her persistent bad habits and teach her a lesson. She thought that making Jessica stay put in the darkness would sprout a desire to reflect on her mistakes. And that this way, she would understand what she had done wrong. It almost feels like I'm being made to do the same thing. If that's the true purpose of this hide and seek, and this must be my naivety, the hope that if their goal is to make me repent, nothing will happen here during this hour. Uncertainty and fear of that man's shadow are not what I need right now. Will someone suddenly come to this room, open this closet, and do something horrible to me now that I've come here in total secrecy as promised? That's what I should be worrying about. The culprit, or one of his accomplices, is very close by. If they weren't, well, they wouldn't be able to observe me so thoroughly. I don't want to think it, but it is highly likely that the culprit bought off one of the servants. The culprit hid an eerie card with Autumn written on it in my room. I don't know. My personal room is always locked. That trick wouldn't have been possible without a key. Instead of believing that they obtained the key when the servants weren't looking, it's much more realistic to assume that one of the servants lent the culprit a hand, which is actually something I predicted before. This could be a situation in some way, either the murders or something else, where the mastermind has the assistant of somebody else, whether they want to or not. And maybe that's what we're being shown here. Maybe people are doing things in such a way in these stories because they have to. But what is holding them so accountable to do so? The thought that this mystery man might be peeking into my heart sent goosebumps running across my whole body. It's true that I like autumn, but I've never said it out loud. I don't think anyone's ever heard me say it. If I asked even my husband what my favorite season is, he would probably be stumped for an answer. No. Just once I told it to a single person. That's right. Shannon. On an autumn day long ago, I happened to be in a good mood. And I mentioned that autumn was my favorite of the 4 seasons. So the culprit, or one of their accomplices, has to be Shannon. I don't know about all that. But here's another thing. Shannon doesn't really seem like the person to go out and do anything like this, but I mean, it could be anybody. I think there's reason to suspect even Genji, and I really like the guy. I trembled and shook with rage. Didn't Kinzo once say that anger is the fastest sedative to cure fear and uncertainty? No, fuck that shit. It's easy to tell the most fearful humans from within a crowd. They're always the first to get angry. I remember him telling me that. So I realized that this anger was a sign that I was actually frightened, and I tried my best to remain calm. However, this is a vital clue for turning things around. Shannon may not be reliable as a servant. But if she's an accomplice used by that mystery man, this might actually be convenient. A weak-willed girl. If I threaten her, she'll probably spill the name of the mastermind in an instant. I'll secretly tell the police about this. It might become a big clue towards arresting the culprit.
あのカードで私を驚かし、うまく手綱を取れたつもりだったのでしょうが、むしろ墓穴を掘ったようですね。
I never told anyone except Shannon that I like autumn, so is that a fact? Is that something to consider a fact going forward? This is unshakable proof that she's working with the culprit. That or it was just a 25% chance that, whoever this mystery man was, got it right. Though I once thought this time in the closet would crush me with uncertainty and uneasiness, well, it's actually given me the start of a counterattack. If I wasn't given this time in the darkness, I probably wouldn't have noticed this. I'm almost grateful to the culprit for making up this foolish game. My mood brightened. And I still can't guarantee that my husband is safe, but I'll definitely get him back and force the culprit to face judgment. I clenched my fist tightly and further strengthened my resolve to avoid losing this fight at any cost. Uh-oh. At that time, I heard the sudden sound of someone trying to force the locked door open, and my heart leapt. The voice was Hideyoshi's. I heard that quiet voice as though he was talking to himself, coming from what was probably the hallway. Apparently, he had thought it was locked and tried to unlock it, but had ended up locking the unlocked door instead. Once again, there was the sound of the lock turning, and now the door opened with a faint sound. Why is Hideyoshi's son in this room? Footsteps that sounded like his came in, and there was the sound of him closing and locking the door behind him. Then came what seemed to be the sound of him setting the chain. Don't tell me. Hideyoshi's son is the mastermind? I don't know about that. Let's see what's going on here. Or else an accomplice. Is he planning to do something to me in this room? It would take some time to unlock the door from this side, much less remove the chain. If Hideyoshi's son doesn't intend to let me escape from here, he won't give me enough time to undo the chain. In that case, if he opens the closet door and sees me crouching here pathetically, just what kind of fearsome words will he say? I don't want to be found. I don't want to be found. I beg you, pass right on by the closet door. Please keep going into the center of the room. My head was so filled with a throbbing sound that it felt like it was about to explode, and I almost missed hearing his noisy footsteps. So when I heard a clunking sound coming from the center of the room, I finally realized that he had passed by the closet and was deeply relieved. Is he there with Ava? As he whispered, he did something that made a clunking sound. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. I wonder who's calling me right now. Alright, well that ruined the mood. As he whispered, he did something that made a clunking sound. He was probably closing the shutters on the windows. Just in case. In case I try to escape out the window? No, that can't be it. That's right. When I left the parlor, everyone was talking about possibly taking a break. After all, several murders have occurred. And the weather is bad. There'd be nothing abnormal if someone chose to rest in a guest room here instead of returning to the guest house, where there was dead bodies, and a whole bunch of blood, I'm sure, still remains there. Also, that phone call I got here was, it was complete bogus. Like, it was a local number, but it was somebody trying to, it's like a survey or like a research type call. I don't know, California is just full of those. In that case, locking up and closing the shutters to guarantee safety is the proper course of action to take. When he finished closing the shutters, there was a thunk as though he had just flopped over on the bed. It was surprising how much of the situation could be grasped just by the sound. What's going on here? Did the man from 19 years ago plan all this out to put me in the same room as Hideyoshi-san? No, that probably isn't true. He probably planned on me hiding here, but Hideyoshi-san coming to take a rest here must have been outside the scope of his plan. Thinking about it that way, having him in the room might be odd, but it also might guarantee my own safety. Unlike his wife, Hideyoshi-san is the kind of person I can talk to. If Eva-san comes, things will probably get complicated. Maybe I should slip out of this closet now while he's still alone. Reveal everything to just him and ask for help. I don't know. But if I do that, my husband might be killed. Until my husband is released, I shouldn't do anything rash. Should I go out? Should I go out and talk or hide in here? Moaning from my headache and biting my lower lip, I resisted the urge to crawl out of here. Even if I talk with Hideyoshi-san, I don't know where my husband is being held. I'm sure the traitor who's observing me is nearby. Just talking to him won't resolve anything. I suspect that Shannon is the traitor, but that's no proof that Goda and the others aren't. That's all useless. I guess leaving here and confessing is too dangerous after all. Eventually, I heard a strange, sobbing voice. Whose voice was it? I strained my ears trying to hear that strange voice, and was shocked to discover that it was Hideyoshi weeping. Why is he crying? Hideyoshi, who had lost his only son, I guess that's a fair one right there, was finally able to shed tears and cry now that he was all alone like this. Thinking that he needed to support Eva in her distress, he acted as though he alone was standing firm. However, he was as good a right to cry as anyone, or he has as good a right to cry. And now that he's found a place where no one can see his tears, he finally let himself do it. And I have lost my daughter. I haven't seen her corpse with my own eyes, so it still doesn't really feel like she's dead. But if the one who carried her off was the culprit, and he had some repulsive motive for doing it, just thinking about it makes me feel as if my chest will tear itself apart. The reason I'm hiding in here now is that I'm thinking more about my still living husband than my dead daughter. But if I were given the chance, I'd be wailing at the top of my lungs too. However, I still cannot let myself do that. It isn't because the man from 19 years ago told me to hide. It's because I'm the final head of the Ushiromiya family. No, you ain't. It's been completely overshadowed by the recent uproar, but last night Battler-kun found the hidden gold and even gained the head's ring from that mysterious envelope. At the very end, when it's all over, I probably won't be able to prevent his ascension as the head. And when everything regarding the distribution of the inheritance is revealed, the Ushiromiya family honor and glory passed down from father will plummet to the earth. So I am the final head. Battler-kun will probably inherit the remaining wealth of the Ushiromiya family. However, its history and honor will all end with my generation. Therefore, I am the final head. I must not cry. Not yet. Until I get my husband back and avenge my daughter, I will not be allowed to shed tears. In the closet, I silently hung my head as I listened to Hideyoshi-san's sobs. Oh, Jesus. What the fuck was that? Oh my god, it was my fucking controller. There's controller support in this shit? Oh my god, that shook my whole fucking, desk. Fuck, alright. I have it charging over here, and I forgot, that it was even plugged in. Okay, I forgot. This is all technically using the engine of a console game. Of course there's going to be controller support. Huh? My heart leapt. I heard a sound that must have been Hideyoshi-san, who had probably been lying prostrate on the bed, bounding to his feet. Did he notice me? He was clearly in a struggle with someone. Who on earth could it be? No, it doesn't matter who it is. It's probably the culprit, and they're probably trying to take Hideyoshi-san's life. There's nothing that we can do, though. This is kind of how it was set up. We could have all guessed this. Shouldn't I jump out of here and help him? If I can't help him, shouldn't I call for help? No, but if I do something like that, I'll be questioned about why I was hiding in here. However, if Hideyoshi-san gets killed like this... No, now isn't the time to be saying that. At this rate, he'll certainly be killed. I'll jump out of here and help him right now. But if I do that, even if I can save Hideyoshi-san, I might be abandoning my husband's life. Okay, but think about it this way, Natsuhi. There's only one culprit here, somebody that's trying to kill him. If you take away, the overall danger here, you might be able to save everyone, but I don't think she can. We don't even know who the enemy supposedly is. Hideyoshi-san's life and my husband's life. How sinful would it be to try and weigh those against each other? At that time, there was a loud sound as the door opened and the chain was pulled tight. Someone was trying to open the door despite the chain being set.
あなた、私を開けてくれる？
エヴァ！
あなた？何？どうしたの？あなた、ここを開けて！
Well, rest in peace, Hideyoshi.
開けて、あなた！
Yeah, okay, I gotta unplug my controller here. Okay, there we go. Alright, yeah, that was, that was funny. And now I gotta turn off my controller or else it's still gonna do the same shit. I had no idea that this would work. I might actually need to explore using my controller because I'm actually standing right now to record this with my new setup. I recently, got a beautiful hydraulic desk, where I hope the hydraulics will never fail me, but, you know, it's bound to happen. And, I like recording standing up. I did it with, Tsukihime, and now I'm trying it out here with Umineko. It's actually really fun. She opened and closed the door over and over again with all her might, but of course, she couldn't snap the chain. Eva-san called for help in a loud voice and raced through the hallway. By this time, the room had settled back into silence, and the earlier sense of Hideyoshi being in a noisy struggle had disappeared completely. What's going on here? So right now I'm in the same room as the murderer who killed Hideyoshi-san? In that case, the culprit should try to escape from the room as soon as possible. So why are they hiding in here? I haven't heard anything. Nothing that might have been the culprit who attacked Hideyoshi-san rushing away. No matter how much I strain my ears, I can't sense anyone in the room. In fact, it's so silent that it makes what happened just a second ago feel like an illusion. In other words, does this mean that the culprit is hiding his breath? Standing just outside this closet? Waiting for me to just stumble on out? But here's another thing. Let's say, theoretically, there really wasn't any other person in this room. That Natsuhi really was in this closet here. And, you know, hard to say why she's here, whether it's because she was told to or decided to just end up here herself. Whatever, she was here. She witnessed something here of a murder on Hideyoshi. But what if what happened to Hideyoshi right now wasn't anybody else's doing? Hideyoshi was killed somehow. We got to figure out how specifically he died. Maybe his neck was, you know, cut. What if he did it to himself? What if that happened? Now, that's not to say that there isn't a culprit here, but what if something happened to Hideyoshi that made him think that somebody else was in this room, and that in trying to kill this somebody else, he killed himself? But it was still like an indirect killing of some sort. Kind of like a hallucination. I don't even know what I should be scared of anymore. If only I could just melt away into the darkness of this closet. I mustn't remain in this room any longer. I get the feeling I have more to worry about than just my personal safety. But what should I do? I don't even know if it's a good idea to leave this closet. Eventually, the clamber of many rushing footsteps approached. I'll hold my breath again and melt away into the darkness of the closet. Yeah, that's not going to really work out well for Natsuhi after everybody gets in somehow and, you know, see Hideyoshi dead and then find her in the closet. Eva dashed back, bringing everyone with her. Goda was gripping some wire cutters to cut the chain with. After trying to open the door again and confirming that the chain was still set, she yelled through the crack in the door. Goda stuck the large wire cutter, which looked like it could just slice off a whole finger, through the crack of the door and easily severed the chain. As soon as it was severed, Eva pushed Goda aside and dashed in. The others tried to follow her, but they bumped into Eva, who had fallen to her knees moaning. So even though they couldn't tell much of what was going on inside the room, They could tell by Ava's moans that they were too late.
なんてこった。
南條先生、主人を見て早く。
今見ます。
嘘だろ。秀吉おじさんが休むって出てって10分かそこいらだってのに。
お風呂場には誰もいない？
はい、誰もおりません。
なんということでしょう。
Beautiful.
残念だが手の施しようがない。
Well, I heard the death chime. Let's read up on this. How has he died? Corpse discovered in a guest room on the first floor of the mansion. He had been pierced through the back with a demon stake. Its tip reached as far as his lungs. Because he was lying face down on the bed, suicide must be ruled out. Okay, there goes my, silly ass prediction there. But what the fuck, What the fuck? How did this happen? Unless Natsuhi did it herself. And again, the perception that we have here in this story, what we're perceiving is completely wrong. And that Natsuhi actually did it. Nanjo stood up, hanging his head sadly. It was only natural, because anyone, even if they went to a doctor, would think that at a glance... Well, yeah, I mean, that's just straight up, that's death, man. Anything through the back like that is probably death. Hideyoshi was lying face down on the bed and stuck deep into his back with something like a blade with an intricate demonic design on it. I mean, it goes back to that, what we saw in episodes 1 and 2. When Ava pulled it out with all her might, they could tell that it wasn't a blade but some kind of stake. And its sharp tip had penetrated nearly 15 centimeters in. It had probably dug deep into the lungs. If it had been stuck any harder, well, the tip might even have pierced all the way through to the surface of his chest. No, that really was stupid.
くせろめ。まだ血が足りねえってのかよ。
やはりこの屋敷のどこかに隠れていて私たちを狙っているのでしょうか。
それよりおかしいわ。この部屋は戸締まりが完璧なのよ。
確かに鎧戸も全て閉まってますし、扉にはさっきまでチェーンが。
それはおかしいではありませんか。
Unless somebody, climbed in. Could Hideyoshi? Well, no, because then the shutters. How do you close everything back up after you've done the deed? This is strange.
それじゃ犯人はどうやってこのお部屋の秀吉様を襲ったというんですか。
扉の隙間からこの杭を投げて刺したとか。
その隙間から秀吉さんのベッドは完全に死角よ。銃を使ったって殺せやしない。おかしな話になったわ。密室殺人。
密室殺人。
The thing is that we've had so many of these situations. We know that poison could not have been the cause in a lot of ways, but if we want to take it into like a Higurashi type of direction, which is what I was just kind of thinking, it is suicide, but it's also somebody kind of set it up in like a poisoning way, so it is still kind of like an indirect murder. But I can't think of any other way for these people to die the way they had in all these episodes, unless there's somebody physically here. But we were getting somewhere, I think, in episode 3, so let's keep our eyes peeled and our minds as open as they can be.
そうと決めつけるのは早いぜ。風呂場の天井を外して天井裏に逃げたとか。あるいは鎧戸が実は外からでも閉められるとかな。
鎧戸は外からはびくともしませんでした。今確認してきました。
エリカ
I kind of forgot about her. It's no wonder everything felt so quiet and relaxed. At some point, Erica had split from the group. Just now, she had finally arrived and poked her face in from the hallway. When she heard that a crime had occurred in this room, she had watched everyone rush towards the room but circled around to the outer wall herself. And she had gone all by herself to check that the shutter was down on the window, that you couldn't do anything with it from the outside, and that there was nothing out of the ordinary.
室内は案の定お約束で。
そういう言い方はねえだろ。
お悔やみ申し上げます。で、室内の状況は？
扉にはチェーンがかかっていて、私たちは切断して入ったわ。
そして窓にはすべて鎧戸。しっかり内側から施錠されてる。
奥は何を揉めてるんです？
Ava was arguing with Nanjo about something. Apparently, she wanted to carry the corpse to the parlor. Nanjo tried to calm her, saying that they should leave the crime scene as untouched as possible until the police came, but the problem is that the corpses are up and walking away somehow.
ジョージたちの死体は、そうしたらどうなったの？犯人にどこかへ持っていかれちゃったのよ。犯人は殺すだけじゃ飽き足らず、遺体にまで何か無体なことをするつもりなのかもしれない。だからダメ。ここへ主人を一人ぼっちで残していくなんて絶対ダメ。
Ava does have a point. After all, the victims before now have all been carried away after we were shown their terrible wounds.
エリカちゃん、現場をそのままで保存したいだろうが、今回はちょいと折れてもらうぜ。
どうぞご勝手に。私にとって興味があるのは金蔵さんの書斎よりはるかにまともな密室が出現したことだけです。死体には興味ありませんので、どうぞご自由になさってください。
Battler's expression was clearly unhappy, but she ignored him completely.
搬出していただいて結構ですよ。あ、それとも私が邪魔ですか？
Erica backed away from the door to open a path. She showed no trace of any sadness for the dead. Her eyes simply blazed with thoughts of this closed room murder that had appeared. In any event, the great detective had given her permission. Ava and some others wrapped Hideyoshi up in the sheets, and Goda and Rudolph carried him out. The sheets were quickly stained red. It was so painful to see that Shannon and Kumasawa strip the blanket off the bed to further cover the corpse.
ほら、起き上がれ。
え、どいてますよ。
100枚運ぼう。
はい。
あなた、いいこと？みんな、これからは常に団体行動。絶対に孤立してはダメ。
犯人は源氏さんを襲った時点で世情がもはや安全を保証しないことは明白だぜ。
しかしチェーンまでされていたのにどうやって？
不可能だ。鎧戸もチェーンロックもしっかりかかっていた。マスターキーがあったって、あの部屋に押し入るのは不可能だ。
きっとベアトリーチェ様の仕業ですよ。
ベアトリーチェ様のはずありません。碑文は解かれ、すでに儀式の意味は失われたはず。
わかるものが。こんなの魔女にしか不可能だ。
魔女にしか不可能ですか。グッといい響きです。
エリカちゃん、話を聞いてる？
Now she's in her own little world again.
私たちはこれから全体行動って決まったわ。私たちはまず秀吉さんの遺体を客間へ運ぶ。探偵ごっこはそれからにしない？
When she heard the words playing detective, Erica grimaced visibly. Then everyone stumbled out and she took a single step into the now empty guest room, looked around and burned that scene into her eyes. Erica claimed to have a photographic memory. If it was true, those few seconds were more than enough for her. Later on, she could sip black tea in the parlor while perusing the photograph of the scene inside her memory, playing the part of an armchair detective. Then suddenly her eyes stopped on the closet off to the side, a closet for hanging overcoats. It was large enough to fit a coat on a hanger, A person should be able to hide in it. Slowly, Erica stretched her hand out towards the closet. Oh boy. Oh boy. Open that shit. Erica's shoulder was grabbed roughly from behind.
行くぜ探偵さん。団体行動を乱すなって修学旅行で習わなかったか。
私が旅行に行くと必ず人が死ぬって。
ほら、何してやがるガキども。早く来い。
That was too convenient, man. Rudolph told them to hurry. After clicking her tongue and glaring at the closet, Erica followed Battler back to the parlor for the time being. Okay, so she would have opened the closet door, though. The sound of their footsteps finally faded. That time of terror, when I feared that even the dripping of the cold sweat covering my cheeks might be noticed, had finally ended. I don't know why the closet door sounds like a big-ass door. With my hand that still couldn't stop trembling, I slowly opened the closet door and dashed out into the hallway. It's okay. No one's found me. Still, it's a good thing they didn't lock the door. If they had, I wouldn't be able to lock it behind me after I left, and they'd find that suspicious. Anyway, I should leave this place. Then I'll return to my room and pretend that I was sleeping the whole time. Yes, if I don't get back soon, a new murder has occurred. They'll probably try to tell me about it, and they'll probably do it shortly after they carry Hideyoshi-san's corpse back to the parlor. I can get around a phone call by saying I was asleep and didn't notice, but if they come knocking directly, that will be bad. I have to get back quickly before they try to force their way in. Yeah, they are going to head towards her, not just to inform her, but also to make sure that she also isn't dead. I don't know whether I should run all out noisily, hide my footsteps, and walk in secret, or walk around normally as though nothing had happened. At the very least, it'll be bad if I bump into them on their way back to the parlor. Anyway, I'll head to my room, at a quick pace without being noticed by anyone. This is so strange. I don't know how to put it, you know, like, how could I describe how weird this all seems, especially with Natsuhi's situation? It feels so separate, completely cut off from everything else that's going on here. And I feel like that's just to throw us off. I passed through the hallway to the lobby. If I go up the big staircase in the lobby, my room is just a little bit... Uh-oh.
Natsuhi-san?
Hello, Erica. Just as she was about to go up the large staircase, Natsuhi heard Erica call out to her, and was so surprised that she visibly jumped.
ちょうど今からあなたにも知らせに行こうと思ってたんです。
それはありがとうございます。それで何かありましたか？
今、夏日さん階段を登ってました？夏日さんの部屋って上で。
Erica coldly pointed out this strange fact. Natsuhi cursed her bad luck.
寝つけなくて客間に戻ろうとしていたのですが、自分の部屋に鍵をかけたか不安になり戻ろうとしたのです。心配性なのでよくあることです。気にしないでください。
ああ、よくありますよね。そう、記憶力に自信のない人にありがちな癖です。
Normally, since Erica was clearly making fun of her, Natsuhi might have looked annoyed. However, right now, Natsuhi was extremely relieved to hear Erica admit that this sort of thing happened a lot.
エリカさんこそお一人でどうしたんですか？
例の客室を調べようかと思いまして。
客室？
え、大変なことになったじゃないですか。現場検証は私の権利ですので。
Erica's probing gaze peered deep into Natsuhi's eyes. I'll read one of these days, read properly, that is. She could tell. Erica already suspected Natsuhi. Judging by the subtle nuance in her words, she must be planning to make me slip up and reveal that I know about the crime with Hideyoshi, when I supposedly haven't been told about it yet. Natsuhi played dumb and asked what had happened again.
何か？
いえ、何でも。また最初の事件の繰り返しですね。
どういう意味ですか？
またあなたは自室で そして今回もそのアリバイを証明できないわけですよね。
おっしゃっている意味が分かりません。逆を言えば私が自室にいなかったことをあなたこそどう証明されるわけですか？
おや、そうきましたか。ならばそれはおいおい。鍵は後にしてください。皆さんに重大な話があります。
鍵を確認したら戻ります。先に始めていてください。
秀吉さんが殺されました。その件についてです。
She had planned on using the need to check her lock as an excuse to escape to her own room, after which she would claim to have a sudden headache and stay in bed the rest of the time. However, now that she had been informed of Hideyoshi's murder, it would be clearly suspicious to postpone that and escape to her room. She was already under suspicion just because she had been seen heading up the stairs to the second floor. She couldn't afford to do anything else suspicious. Natsuhi gave up and headed for the parlor as Erika had urged her to do. Yeah, that's not gonna work out for her. When she opened the door to the parlor, Ava's sobs poured out, and everyone glanced at Natsuhi with grave faces. Those gazes almost made it look as though they suspected Natsuhi. Well, she was the only one gone. Like, it's going to seem like she was involved. Somehow. It was now painfully apparent to Natsuhi. This must have been what that man was after. It was a trap to create a baffling closed room mystery and try to frame her for it. However, she couldn't have resisted. She couldn't sacrifice her husband's life. And while it is true I hid in the closet, that's all I did. I definitely haven't committed murder. I might be extremely suspicious, but I'm not the culprit. And most importantly, I'm not under suspicion yet. I don't know about all that there. I'll tell the police everything. I'll have to endure until then. I'm sure one of the servants is a traitor. Even in a situation like this, if I mention my husband being held hostage, the culprit will hear and might use it as an excuse to kill him.
ちょうど夏日さんが戻ってきてくれました。全員が揃ったところで、私から皆さんにとても重要な話があります。
重要な話？
重要な話です。最初の事件からをすべて皆さんの前で整理したいと思います。
それなら他の皆さんとなさってください。私はそういうことは警察に任せるべきと思っています。関心がありません。
整理した上で重要なお話があるのです。あなたにも誰にも断る権利はありません。
Erika used her detective's authority to proclaim the start of an assembly. None of the pieces could disobey. Praying that she wouldn't become the topic of conversation, Natsuhi reluctantly sat on the sofa as she had been urged to. Well, here we go.
すみません。その扉閉めてもらえます？
はい。
Are we creating our own closed room? Or, I mean, at least everybody is here in this room. Shanun and Kanun closed the door. Since it had been decided a short while ago to lock all doors and windows carefully, Kanun locked it. That lock, which existed to protect the safety of this room, felt like a lock on a prison cell to Natsuhi, one that would hold her in place and prevent any escape. Natsuhi still hadn't noticed. Though Erika had gone into the corridor to check the crime scene in Hideyoshi's room, her goal had changed. In other words, from Erika's point of view, the sound of that lock was truly...
Checkmate.
Erika said that suddenly. Bernkastel said that suddenly.
あら早い。何？もう犯人分かっちゃったの？まだ事件だって全然進んでないの？もう少し殺させていろいろと手がかりを集めればいいのに。
さあラムダ、すべての駒を集めなさい。ここからが一番面白いんじゃない？思い切り楽しみましょう。
どうかしらね。お手並み拝見といくわよ。
24時のゲームセットを待たずにもう仕掛けてきたとはな。ベルンカステル教名、気の早い御仁よ。
相当の早仕掛けですな。この段階でもう勝てる算段があるとは。
普段なら魔女の存在を主張するだけで勝てるけど、今回は夏日や金蔵や守るものが多いわ。面倒な戦いになりそうね。
面倒な戦い大いに望むところよ。わらわの黄金の島でこれ以上の好き勝手はさせぬわ。
Uh-huh.
受けて立とうぞ、ベルンカステル卿フルドエリカ。
Okay, yeah, here we go. Let's see what we got in store. Oh, we're leaving the game board here. In the Golden Land, the endless rain continued to fall. I mean, have we truly, like, rejoined the game here with Battler? Battler was nowhere to be seen. It would very soon reach the time that Battler had joined in on the 5th game. Okay, yeah, so we haven't truly caught up yet, but we are getting to where even Burka still said, you know, like, hey, I was just about to reveal everything. And control of the pieces would be passed on to Battler. In other words, he would only be officially added to the game now in this final stage, where Bernkastil had pinpointed the culprit. So he had left the Arbor a short while ago. Now the only ones in sight were Virgilia, who continued to knit silently, and Beato, who had just sat there blankly amidst the smell of her black tea, not even putting the cup to her lips. Virgilia stopped knitting for a moment, and looked out across the vast golden rose garden that extended as far as the eye could see.
バトラ君は誰が犯人云々というだけのゲームならもう二度と屈することのない力を身につけたと言えるでしょう。第4のゲームまでであなたは全てのメッセージを、つまりバトラ君はいつでも全ての真実に気づいても良いということです。しかし彼には甘えがある。だからこのままゲームを幾百と続けたとしても永遠に解けはしない。まるで青い鳥を探すかのように永遠にさまよい続けるだけ。
And that is you, Beatrice. It's the same for you. Even if this game continues hundreds more times, you will never reach the answer you seek for all eternity. Bernkastil will abuse this game without a doubt. Lambda Delta will also churn this game about with the utmost arrogance. At a glance, that may be humiliating and appear to you and Battler as though the game has been stolen from you. However, that is something the two of you need right now. To end Battler's naive softness, to end your hesitation.
だからあなたはあの二人を呼んだのです。あなたたちの永遠の拷問を終わらせるため。あの二人はあなたに勝利か敗北のいずれかを与えるでしょう。しかしそれはいずれであってももはや慈悲に満ちたものです。あなたにももうそれは分かっているはず。
Virgilia faced Beato, whom she had come to adore as a daughter, with cold eyes that she must not have shown often. It was like the gaze of a mother who, instead of scolding, silently urges their child to recognize their mistake.
ベアトリーチェ、あなたはいつまでそうして生きるでもなく死ぬでもなく天国に昇るでもなく地獄に落ちるでもなく煉獄山の頂上でぼんやりとしているつもりなの。私はワルギリア、彼を煉獄山に案内し頂上のあなたのところまで連れてきました。そしてあなたはベアトリーチェ、彼の手を取って天国へ登るか彼を抱いて地獄へ落ちるか選ばなくてはならない。
What do you mean by that? Did you know that the discord called Purgatory, which lies in the gap between heaven and hell, is sometimes more torturous than even hell itself? On the gates of hell it is written that you must abandon all hope. A human without hope can accept their suffering and give up. However, the residents of Purgatory have hope, a hope of possibly reaching heaven, a hope that cannot be abandoned. And it tortures them. Even in the depths of hell, no greater torture device exists than the single pin known as hope.
飛びなさい、煉獄の崖より。淡く脆くてくだらない希望の未練ごとパンドラの箱を開け放ってしまいなさい。怖いでしょう、箱を開けるのは。
Beato was silent. But with a single tear, she nodded slightly.
箱の中の猫は生きているのか。
We're always bringing this shit up. Like, so goddamn often.
それを確かめる時が来ました。
Or maybe it feels so often because, like, every visual novel I read tends to have this shit.
死んでいる猫ならば、早く供養して天へ昇ってもらいなさい。生きている猫ならば、早く餌を与えて全ての愛情を注いであげなさい。生き死にに関係なく、あなたの猫箱は猫を永遠に冒涜しています。あなたが開くことを恐れた箱の鍵をあの二人が持ってきてくれましたよ。
Beatrice, it is time for you to die now. I hope that your heart is stopped by the hand of the person you desire. What does that mean? Oh well. Who's to say, right? That's the end of that chapter. We're just progressing right along, aren't we? Yeah, look, the clock is, it's right in our face. We're really getting, okay. I guess it's midnight now. Okay. Why? Why are we already at midnight? Do I need to click? No? What's going on here? Why are we at midnight? What happened to, like, everything else going on there? Okay, this is new. All of the pieces from the game board were gathered. All of the humans, furniture, witches, and the witches on an even higher level had gathered in one place. This is very interesting. That place was like a solemn cathedral with an unbelievably high ceiling. White stonework, golden ornaments. Although there were windows, there were no entrances or exits. It was a strange, strange place. But for some reason, no one wondered where this strange place was, because they were not given the right to think of this place as strange.
コマドも全員揃ったかしら？
全員揃いましたであります。
I guess we're getting our whole cast here. Everybody's going to assemble for the potential conclusion.
そうかね。一体今ここに何人いるのかしら？
何人いようとも18人を超えた存在は全て幻よ。それを認めさせるのがわらわのゲームでな。
The three witches were seated on special thrones set upon a very high balcony. In the center sat the game master Lambda Delta, and on either side of the semicircular balcony sat Bernkastil and Beatrice facing each other. But of course, this is Beatrice from within the game. Below them, Erica ran forward, lifted the corners of her skirt, and bowed respectfully.
大ラムダデルタ教、我が集会宣言をお聞き届けくださり、そして大ベルンカステル教、ご期待ください。必ずや主を苛む退屈の毒を一時であろうとも忘れさせてご覧に入れます。
ええ、期待しているわ。それでこそ私の分身、私の駒よ。
Erica and Bernkastil exchanged cruel smiles that would make anyone want to avert their gaze.
お聞きなさい。魔女ども、人間ども、これより魔女集会にて幻想法廷の改定を宣言する。
The commander of the game spoke with words of power. Though her words were spoken within such a vast space, they rang out with the force of a bell in a bell tower.
お前たちのこのゲームにおける生と役割はおしまい。第5のゲームはこれにて閉じられ、24時を迎えての答え合わせとなるわ。
Yeah, I guess we just jumped straight to the end.
では早速と言いたいところだけど、これだけ大勢いるんだしね。 私はラムダデルタ、絶対の魔女にして新しきゲームの支配者。
ベルンカステル、奇跡の魔女ベアトリーチェの魔女幻想のカンパを目的とするの。無限の魔女ベアトリーチェである。我が存在の主張と夏日金蔵の保護を目的とする。バトラ様、次なる序列が
後宮バトラベアトラ。いや、魔女どもと戦ってる以上だ。
ご存知と思いますが、貴殿は今回のゲームは途中よりの参加となっております。魔女集会開催のこの時点ではまだ未参加ということです。お分かりでありますか？
分かってるぜ。しばらくは発言権がないってことだろ。
ご理解感謝であります。
Even though Battler held a rank near that of witches, he sat on the foremost of the benches shared with the other relatives all by himself at one end. He met the gaze of Beato, who was up on the balcony.
わらわの宿敵であると一言言えばよいもの。
お前だけの敵とは限らねえからだよ。
取り返すぞ。これはわらわたちのゲームだ。
ああ。
I almost said I was fighting against Beato's illusion of the witch. Since the beginning, Beato has been my only enemy. But right now, Erica and those witches who started toying around with Beato's tail are also my enemies. Who should I fight and how? Maybe it's a good thing I don't have the right to speak for a while. I'll calm down and coolly watch over everything. Probably the way to go about it.
フルドエリカです。この第5のゲームの犯人を暴き、この物語に愉快なピリオドを与えてご覧に入れます。
Erica greeted the witches above her and the humans behind her once again.
私も期待してるわ。さあ、残りのコマどもも適当にザラーっと自己紹介なさい。人間ども、全員自己紹介を。
When 45 urged him to introduce himself, Kinzo stood up.
後ろ宮金蔵だ。書斎の窓より抜け、ロッケン島のどこかに潜んでおる。
Which we know is bullshit.
後ろ宮クラウス。現在は囚われの身で、どこかに監禁されている。
後ろ宮エヴァン、生きてるの？
ルドルフだ。この後もずっと後ろ宮だからな。
後ろローザです。第一の晩に殺されました。
ジェシカ、同じく第一の晩に死亡だぜ。
ジョージです。同じく第一の晩に死亡。
マリア、死んじゃったけど私はこうして喋ってるね。死ぬことなんて大した問題じゃないでしょ。
Yeah, you talk way too much, Maria.
後ろ宮夏日です。生きております。
秀吉や、ついさっき殺されたばかりや。
Yes, you were, man.
キリエよ、まだ生きてるわ。
南條です。私も流れておりますな。
源氏と申します。第一の晩に死亡でございます。
シャノンです。生存してます。
カノンです。同じく生存。
ゴーダです。よろしくお願いします。皆様方。
熊沢でございます。よろしくお願いします。
続いて魔女ども全員自己紹介を。
We've got quite the attendance here, I believe. Watch as we meet more fucking characters somehow. Virgilia's group could also be seen. Unlike the floor Beato's group was on, the second floor had a balcony that looked like raised audience seating. And they sat there looking down as though they were at a theater.
ワルギリアと申します。ベアトリーチェの師匠です。ガープよ、死体を消す役担
当。炉の上、紅茶を入れる役担当です
な。Yep, that's all he does. It's the tea and the cookies, man. Nope, then we've got the steaks.
煉獄の七姉妹を代表してご挨拶申し上げます。第二の番の秀吉殺人を担当しました。
Oh, okay.
煉獄の七姉妹、ここに。続けてエリカ教の家具どもは自己紹介を。
It's interesting that the stake was still, you know, one of the seven Sisters of Purgatory that we've seen in previous episodes. Even so, Beatrice isn't necessarily, you know, running the show here. Like, the idea is the same, that the deaths will occur with the stakes after the first Twilight.
ガートルード、異端審問補佐官なり。
コーネリア、異端審問補佐官なり。
The two of them could also be seen on the second floor audience seating. They sat apart from Virgilia's group. Then Delanor, who was seated between the two, slowly stood up. She had a presence and dignity about her, as though she was overseeing everything from that place.
ドラノール・エノックスであります。エリカ教の首席補佐を務めます。バトラー、あなたには期待しています。私を失望させないでください。
お互い全力でぶつかるだけだ。
ドラノールの出番は本来なら必要ありません。しかし魔女側が醜く言い逃れをもてあそぶとき、それを断罪してもらわねばなりません。書斎での奇跡は二度と起こりませんから。
最後にご挨拶申し上げます。本魔女集会の進行管理を命ぜられたシエスタ姉妹近衛隊であります。
よろしくお願いします。みえみ
え。以上で全ての駒の自己紹介を終了するであります。
Okay, I take it we're not bringing in pieces from the other games. We're just sticking to what or who have been introduced here in this one.
一同に会するが全38名。
Damn, we've got quite the assembly. There are 38 characters in the fifth game, but if you added all the pieces from previous games too, it would probably rise even higher. This game, which has so often been likened to chess, now has far more pieces than a chessboard.
いいわ。では始めようかしら。発起人、始めてちょうだい。ああ、悪いけどそこのヤギさん、ジュースのおかわりお願いね。
Okay, well, we have the goats here.
ポップコーンを。はあ、そうだったわね。悪魔の感激はポップコーンと相場が決まってるとあんたが決めたんだもんね。
ええ、楽しませてもらうわ。あと紅茶とからし味噌をもらえる。エリカ、始めなさい。私の退屈はもう始まってるわよ。
はい、我が主、お任せを。静粛に、沈黙を。
Whenever she does that cat face with the mouth and everything, it is kind of cute. I kind of dig it. At the sound of her voice, the Chester sisters' core straightened up, lifted their right knees, and stamped down hard on the floor with their heels. Here we go. It became a low, deep rumble in the ground, and all chatter in the cathedral disappeared instantly, as their eyes and expressions became even more hollow and empty. The room fell back into silence, almost as though they were a collection of wax models. I guess this all begins now. Amidst this heavy silence, there was the sound of footsteps, as Erica walked out into the center, where she could catch everyone's attention. When she signaled with her chin, a goat attendant appeared from behind a pillar, and carried a single plain chair out from the front, or out into the front and center of the room. It must have been the defendant's chair.
フルドエリカは告発します。第5のゲームの殺人犯は
Natsuhi. It's Natsuhi, right? Go on, say it.
後宮夏日さん。
Yeah, again, it's not going to be surprising to us. I mean, this is literally how the game started here in episode 5.
あなたが犯人です。
Erica pointed at Natsuhi and spoke. The Natsuhi waxed all alone, shook and regained its expression. It was an expression of panic.
シエスタ姉妹、被告人を席へ連れてってちょうだい。
了解であります。
Oh boy, oh boy.
ちょっと、何をするのです。
Gotta love court.
話しなさい。
45 and 410 both pinned Natsuhi's arms behind her back and led her to the chair in the center. Natsuhi resisted, but the Chester sisters were surprisingly strong, and she couldn't do anything. She turned to the relatives for help, but they just remained silent like wax models.
これよりフルデエリカはなぜ後ろ宮夏日にだけ犯行が可能か再構築してご覧に入れます。ベアト、もちろん受けるでしょ。
当然よ。後ろ宮家顧問錬金術師黄金のベアトリーチェだ。フルドエリカ、受けて立つぞ。我が主に着せようと企むその濡れ衣引き裂いてくれるわ。
Just like with the first Twilight.
安心せよ夏日。そなたはわらわの主だ。そして心に片翼のわしを刻んだ死身に覚えなき罪に怯えるでない。
At those words, Natsuhi jerked back and gulped. Her panic finally disappeared as she stood up straight.
そうですとも。私は後ろ宮夏日、後ろ宮家を冒涜するあらゆる挑戦を受けて立ちましょう。
どうしてこの状況にそのような虚勢が張れるやら。あなた、本当にどこのかけらでもいじめられっ子ね。
She actually is.
ではベルン、主張どうぞ。
ベルンカステルは主張するわ。このゲームの犯人は人間、後ろ宮夏日。
Yeah. You may claim that, but I don't think that's actually the case here. The thing is there a culprit in every game, like a different one? Or is it always Natsuhi in some sort of way? That's the problem here. That's the problem I have with all these games. We have to prove that at least one of them can only be done through human methods. Is that the goal here? Instead of trying to figure out who it actually is all along?
ベアトもどうぞ。
ベアトリーチェは主張する。このゲームの犯人は人間にあらず。わらわこそ犯人であるわ。
She has to be. Who else would it be, you know? It has to be her in the very end. Which means the 5 that died on the first Twilight and Hideyoshi that just died for the second Twilight. It has to be her, right? Because if it's human, well, there we go. We've got a problem on our hands for the witch's side. Burnkenstill, who smiled daringly, and Beatrice, who smiled firmly, crossed gazes.
お聞きね、魔女ども、人間ども、一つの真実に二つの主張が現れたわ。犯人は人間、後ろ宮夏日か。犯人は魔女、ベアトリーチェか。魔女が勝てば、第5のゲームの真相は闇に消える。エリカが勝てば、ゲーム版より魔女幻想は打ち滅ぼされる。つまり、ベアトにとってのみ、負けることの許されない勝負だけれど、覚悟は大丈夫？
何の覚悟が必要だというのか、もとより望むところよ。
If Erika wins, the illusion of the witch will be destroyed. That means the existence of the witch will be denied. Beato was fighting for her life. However, this wasn't the only time that she had been fighting for her life. It had always been a life or death struggle, even when she fought with Battler. Because if Battler had won and destroyed the illusion of the witch in the previous games, Beato would have been destroyed.
汚ねえな。エリカのやつだけ負けても何も失わない。
それはどうでしょう。ベルンカステル教には情けの心がありません。彼女は自分の望んだ活躍をしなかった駒に温かい処遇を与えるとは思えません。
It was inconceivable that the ruthless Burnkenstill would place no blame at all on a piece who had suffered defeat. Erika was probably fighting for her life just as much. The two claims would clash and one would be weeded out. One would fall, and one would not leave this place alive. The only ones who truly had nothing to lose were those witches. Alright, well here we go.
オーケー。
No problems? All right. Well, if there's no problems, then I guess we're good to go in the next session. All right. Well, this is going to be a bit of a different one, isn't it? I think in our next session, because it's going to be even more battles of wits, I think is what we have on our hands here, which could lead to a lot of fun. But who's to say, you know? I think it will be a good time for sure. But thank you all for tuning into this one, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed the continued craziness, despite it being a little different here. But yeah, I don't think Natsuhi is actually the culprit here. I do believe our perception has been completely thrown off, but I don't think that makes her, you know, the culprit. Absolutely not. But it also does make it a little confusing because was it always a different person in each of the different games that have been presented to us in the past from Beatrice? It seems to make the most sense, but everybody does eventually die. Why? How? How is it that everybody eventually dies if this is supposedly all human-made? Yeah, it's getting confusing if it wasn't already. But yeah, thanks for coming by, guys. Thanks for watching this one. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.